All right. Let's get into our first topic then, and who should be the next Prime Minister? Last night, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer came face to face in their first televised leaders' debate as they exchanged blows over political hot potatoes, including taxes, immigration and the NHS. Let's have a quick reminder.
He says the plan is working. So the question for him is, why has he called the election now?
I think it's appalling. Explain to people, why do you think pensioners should pay tax on the state pension? I will put people on planes, create that deterrent. Multiple other European countries agree with that.
We have to end these strikes.
How?
The grown-up way to do that is to get in the room and to negotiate with the doctors and come to a settlement.
So has it changed who you want to see win the election? Do get your calls in for this one. So what do we make of it here in the studio? Bobby, I'm going to start with you. Did it change your mind?
So no, it hasn't changed our mind. And I think it's fascinating how we've imported this American-style presidential debates, because it should be about the party and their policies, but the reality is now, there's the cult of the personality. But with the two there, I think always judge them on their records. And with Sunak, whilst he's someone that is, if you look at the polls, he's significantly far behind. So he's the one that needs to take the risky boxing moves, as it were. But yesterday didn't sort of persuade me that 14 years of Conservative government, and plus he's been Chancellor during COVID, so he's had significant power for a while, and he's not made significant change to the country. And again, immigration, he said we'll bring it down, it's gone up. NHS waiting list said we'll take it down, it's gone up, even though it's come down in the last couple of months, he claimed. Whereas Starmer, his job is not to fumble it, I think. Because, again, the public, we're like, yeah, we're going to give it to Starmer and Labour, but if he makes any sort of faux pas, it could swing back into Sunak's favour. But I think yesterday, based on what I saw, I still feel as if it's Starmer and Labour's to lose.
What do you think, Lynn?
I think anyone's delusional if they say or suggest that either party are winning anyone over massively at the moment. I can admit, I think the Conservatives are horrendous at the moment. However, when we look at Labour under Keir Starmer, I don't feel there's any level of planning. I don't feel that he believes in anything. I don't think that he sticks by what he says. And I think he's in a position where he just wants to win on the basis of everybody hating the Tories at the moment. Now, when we look at the debate, he was asked a question about the NHS. If one of his family members were in dire need of healthcare, would he go private? And now this is a man who has a net worth of 7 million. And he said no. He said, just to try and prove a point. Let's be honest, even the majority of us that are on far less than 7 million or, worth less, we would find the money to go private, and many people are. So I think that was so disingenuous. When he was asked as well about what would you do to bring an end to the strikes, his response was poor. Well, we would get in the room and negotiate. That's what the Conservatives have been doing, but what they're asking for is not realistic. They're asking for a 35% pay rise, which can't be done. So I personally, I do not really like any, but I would rather Rishi Sunak.
What's interesting about both your responses when I asked who you want to win the general election, you both focused on the one you didn't want to win. It seems to be the competition on who can be the least worst. Dean from Shropshire, is that unfair? Am I being unfair?
Well, I would say really we just need some kind of radical change, to be honest. I think that the Reform Party, although, we don't know much about their policies because they've been in the shadows a little bit, I think that over the years, because I'm nearly 55, I've had a lot over the years of listening to Conservatives and Labour. It's so changed since the 80s, because in the 80s you knew the difference between Labour and Conservative. To me, they're just a wash of the same thing now. And I think Reform brings something new to the table.
That's interesting. So you would have liked to have seen Nigel Farage. I mean, he was only announced as the leader of the official leader, and that he was standing, I think, a couple of days ago. So it would have been hard to reorganise, but you would have liked to have seen him in the leaders' debate too?
Oh, 100%, yes. And regard that milkshake thing, well, he was in the jungle, for God's sake. There was a lot worse things thrown at him in there.
I mean, yes, and I suppose politically he's had a lot worse thrown at him, but still probably a scary moment for him to have a substance thrown at you while you're out in public. We do know one thing about Reform. They want net zero immigration. That's something that Nigel Farage has announced. Does that win your vote?
Immigration's always been a hot potato that people are frightened to talk about. And you notice the Labour and Conservatives, they don't really talk about it much. They posture and they talk all this big talk about this, that and the other, and all these crazy schemes. I think we need change. I don't quite know what that change is, but I know that it's not represented by Labour or Conservative. I think we need somebody new. They're not going to make it any worse, put it that way, Storm.
Well, if the polls are to be believed, it looks like the Lib Dems might have quite a good year this election in terms of beating the SNP to be the third largest party. Would you like to have seen them in the leaders' debate? Would you like to see them involved in the discussion as well?
Well, they had that little merger with Conservatives to try and bolster what they did and whatnot. But I just think that to me, I'm sorry, but I just think they're a bit of a wasted vote because they've always been the third horse in the race. And to me, that ties them with the same brush. We need some kind of radical change, I believe, in my heart. That's what I'm thinking anyway.
OK, Dean, thank you very much for your call. It was a vote for Nigel Farage there, not even in the leaders' debate. So that shows how well they both did. Elizabeth from Durham, how do you think that Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak fared during that leaders' debate?
Well, I thought Rishi Sunak did very well, actually.
A lot of people saying that he came across more aggressive than we would normally see him. Did you see that?
Well, because at the end of the day, you know, they think Rishi Sunak hasn't got the to be Prime Minister again, and I think he has.
I'd agree.
He's been unable to send the boat people back because there's nobody. If the Labour Party had been interested, they would have done the same. But as it is, if they get in, why there'll be already houses all over the country where these people, the boat people, will be put.
Okay, I don't think we call them
Lisa.
boat people, but I'll move on from that. So you think that Keir Starmer won't do anything to stop the small boats from crossing over here, and
No.
you think that Rishi Sunak has, despite not one flight taking off to Rwanda, you've still got the confidence there?
Yes, I still have the confidence. I mean, he's been rebuffed by the authorities in this country. The law lords say no, no, no. But of course, at the end of the day, when you look at the maps, we are a small country compared to France, Germany. You could put us in the corner.
I mean, yes, we are, but then technically we only build on a very small part of it, so we could build more houses and indeed probably need to just for the population that's here. But Elizabeth, we're getting distracted slightly. Immigration, clearly a big topic for you. Let's talk about legal migration then. And you've got Rishi Sunak has already announced that he wants to put caps on migration. So every year the House of Commons will vote on how many people they want to give working visas to or student visas to. Nigel Farage, on the other hand, has come down a lot tougher on it. He wants net zero, a one in, one out approach. Perhaps Nigel Farage would be more to your liking.
Well, I maybe would, but at the end of the day, he's done a little turnabout, hasn't he?
Well, he's done a couple in his time.
He was going over to America to help Trump.
His most recent.
So yes, and I agree with him. That our country is too small to have these people coming over, and because they come over here because to do jobs that our people won't do. What do you think? We've got that 8 million people waiting for operations. Half of them have never worked a day in their lives and never contributed.
Not sure those statistics play out, but I understand the sentiment there, Elizabeth. Thank you for your call. John from Kent, let's get back to the leaders' debate. Who do you think fared best? Did it change your view on who you want to win the election?
No, it's not changed my view at all. I don't think any of them, basically, in the day, were speaking for us people, you know, the people below them. And I always say below them because they're above, we're below. I wouldn't, you know, I'm not even going to vote, to tell you the truth. I'm not going to vote. Starmer has definitely not got it. He's not got it. He's not got the Boris Johnson, Donald Trump, you know, the
Is that not a good thing, some people might argue? That he's not got the same characteristics as Donald Trump and Boris Johnson?
Yeah, I think you've got to have that bit of gumption. He's not got the gumption.
He's not got the. Do you think Rishi Sunak has the gumption?
He's actually shouting over the top of him last night, constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that is aimed towards Keir Starmer quite often, is that he's not got it. He's not statesman-like. He doesn't connect with the people, despite him trying to throw accusations at Rishi Sunak for being out of touch, whether you think that's valid or not. Unfortunately for Keir Starmer, he also doesn't seem to connect. Why do you think that might be?
So again, I think when we're talking about connections, okay, Trump might have connected Boris Johnson, but let's see where they got their countries in a bit of a sticky situation.
America might just vote Trump back in.
I know. And what I'm trying to say is that I'd rather have a country where we have a leader that's competent, that can administrate, that's trustworthy, all the sort of like decent human qualities, rather than someone that's an orator. You know, if we wanted, we could go to like Hollywood and get an actor to be our leader, but we don't. We want to get someone.
So I don't even think he can lead his party very well. Look at what happened with Diane Abbott. Like, whatever you agree with, he couldn't take that assertive position. And yes,
Rishi Sunak's had his own problems with the Conservative Party.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, which is why I say I don't think either of them are massively good. But based on the conversation about the debate, if we look at the 14 years that Conservatives have had and how the tone against them has changed massively, people don't have faith in the Conservatives. Keir Starmer should have wiped the floor with Rishi, and he didn't. He was flip-flopping. He didn't have, like the man said, the gumption, the tenacity, the strength.
Where was the flip-flopping yesterday?
In terms of his responses, there was no, really and truly, up against the Conservatives, Rishi Sunak, where he could have literally wiped the floor with him, he had no conviction. And I just think we're facing really challenging times where we look at China, we look at Russia. We need someone who shows strength. I agree with you. Donald Trump and Boris they may be too far the other way. But Keir Starmer doesn't have anything that instills confidence to lead Britain.
But when it comes to Rishi Sunak, I mean, he's been criticised by the Treasury today for coming out with that £2,000 comment that, you know, Labour's tax hikes are going to cost £2,000. That wasn't from the Treasury as far as the Treasury's concerned. That's not going to look good for Rishi Sunak. That doesn't show him as a completely honest and believable leader, does it?
No, I disagree that he shouldn't have used that. He didn't have to give that figure where he actually was advised, from what we're seeing now with that letter, not to use that. So I think that was massively disappointing. That's going to create a level of distrust further with the Conservatives. However, he's not wrong. Under Labour, we will see an increase of taxes, and Keir Starmer admitted that.
It wasn't all positive, obviously, as we've heard, for Rishi Sunak, who was also met with laughs and groans, actually, at various points in the debate. Take a look.
The NHS is broken. How long will it take to fix it?
And it is going to take time to recover from that, but we are now making progress. The waiting lists are coming down.
The waiting list is 7.2 million, they're now 7.5 million. He says they're coming down, and this is the guy who says he's good at math. I'd like you to explain how they're coming down.
Because they were coming down from where they were when they were higher.
7.2.
And they're now on their way down. Because the NHS was impacted by industrial action. And if it wasn't for that, 500,000 appointments would have been saved.
So it's somebody else's fault.
OK, let's go back to the calls then. Lee from East Sussex, what was your verdict when it came to the leaders' debate then?
I felt really that if they started on 0 points, I would say that Starmer remained on 0. He didn't really say a lot, but Sunak was a massive minus 100, not just because of policy, but he came across to me as rude, arrogant, entitled, and particularly with the moderator. He talked over her, he refused to let anyone speak. Also completely lied, has been proven today, about the independent £2,000 tax. That's going to not look good for him, because that was a complete lie, has been proven by today. I'd also like to speak to your female commentator, who's clearly intelligent, but she did say one thing that I find a little bit disgusting. So Keir Starmer said the way he would deal with the doctor's strikes is by getting in the room and negotiating. She turned around and said that's what the Tories have been doing. Well, the head of the BMA and the head of the junior doctors said they absolutely have refused to get in the room. Does she think they're lying?
No, they have had conversations, but when you are faced with a 35% increase...
Which is why you negotiate.
You asked to speak to me. If I can speak, that would be good.
Sorry, apologies.
That's fine. If we are faced with a non-negotiable 35%, then what will be the conversation constantly being in the room? Yes, they have had conversations, but admittedly, you are correct insofar as they're not always going to be in the room, but those conversations have taken place. But do you think it's right, seeing what we are faced with from a tax point of view, that they're not willing to budge on 35% increase? Is that realistic?
Oh, come on, I mean, you know that that's just posturing. You know that these non-negotiable quotes are always, in reality, negotiable. It's been proven by the other settlements. The negotiations were always non-negotiable, but eventually they were negotiated intelligently. The key is, I totally agree. 35% is not affordable, and we totally agree with that. It is posturing. It is kind of the same thing you play any game. You go high and you negotiate. The point being,
but you're negotiating with people's lives. You're negotiating with people. They have striked more than 5 times.
How do you suggest it's ended then?
I think they need to come down a little bit and be more realistic, like the rest of us. Every single person in this country have had to tighten their belts.
I don't really. It's a very important issue. I don't want to get stuck on one issue, and we are talking about a broader thing.
But isn't it? The point is, it has to come down, as was correctly said.
Okay, and you want to get in the room, Lee?
But it has to be via negotiation.
Thank you. Let me interrupt here because I don't want to get stuck in that conversation. I hear you are very happy with what Keir Starmer has said about dealing with the NHS strikes. What other policies did you hear from Keir Starmer that you liked? Because you didn't like Rishi Sunak's policies. What did you hear last night that you liked from Keir Starmer?
To be honest, someone who sits on slightly left of centre, very little. And I think that ultimately that was, unfortunately, an unavoidable game that's going to be played. We've had 14 years of absolute decimation. So it isn't ethically correct, but Keir Starmer doesn't really have to say anything. This is just about a game now. But I totally agree that it is...
Just to confirm, you didn't hear any policies. The answer to that answer is nothing. You just disliked Rishi.
I wouldn't say that. No, I like the ideas of taxation on private schools. Whether it's going to generate the revenue that was suggested is a grey area. I like the idea of more teachers. I like the idea of more nurses. I do agree that these are difficult things because they've not been costed. But again, I think it's all part of maybe a bit of a Machiavellian game to just allow the Tories to absolutely destroy themselves.
Sort of give them enough rope. Lee, thank you very much for your call. The theme that I'm getting here, though, is mostly people disliking one more than the other, rather than really voting a vote of confidence for somebody. Tim from London, did either of them inspire you?
Oh, good morning, Storm. Oh, my God, I've never heard so much hogwash.
What part? Was it this debate or the leaders' debate?
Well, look, I can be honest with you. Up until last night, I was sort of leaning towards voting for Keir Starmer. Mm-hmm. And, oh, my God, it was like a pantomime. All the audience would have... Sorry to cut you. No. All the audience would have needed was a box of rotten vegetables to throw at the pair of them.
What was it missing? What were you looking for that you didn't get then, Tim?
I just would have liked one of them, A, to stop interrupting the lady that was doing it. Mm-hmm. B, when Rishi Sunak announced that £2,000 about pensioners, mm-hmm. I thought, oh, that's not right.
Right.
So, as of today, I'm like, what do I do with my vote?
Okay, so you were going in it thinking, I'm going to vote for Keir Starmer. You've been incredibly disappointed by Keir Starmer's performance and you weren't impressed with Rishi Sunak, so now you're left in kind of no man's land on who to vote for?
I mean, with the Conservatives, they've been in office a very long time. And like the other day with Esther McVey, you know, the Minister for Common Sense, mm-hmm. I mean, there's just so much that they have got wrong.
Okay.
And last night was a perfect opportunity for Rishi. Yes, he was attacking him. Yes, he was aggressive. But Keir Starmer was a bit like a wilting flower.
Mm. I wonder whether we should have another debate with the leaders of all the other parties to see whether anybody else rises from amongst that group. Tim, thank you very much for your call. Roddy from Edinburgh, what's your view?
I wouldn't vote for either of them if I had my total way, Storm. I thought the two of them last night were an absolute disgrace. They were on the programme for an hour. Mm-hmm. They were supposed to be talking British politics. and all they spoke about was English politics. Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland got no mention at all, and even at the end they mentioned England football team in the Euros. And I think as a British Prime Minister, and I'll emphasise British Prime Minister, the two of them are an absolute disgrace.
You were a bit
I'm
disappointed,
thankfully
Roddy.
not British. Like yourself, I'm very Scottish.
So will you be voting SNP then?
100%.
Would you have voted?
But in Westminster by a mile.
Roddy, if you let me jump in, would you have voted SNP prior to watching the leaders' debate anyway?
Yes.
Yes.
I
have a feeling that the majority of people are the same as you. They already had their vote set before they watched the leaders' debate, and I'm not sure how much it's actually changed people's view. But Roddy, thank you so much for your call. Thanks for all your calls on this.